You're telling me they just make things up? High Chancellor Xylox's three eye stalks trembled as they locked onto Ambassador Vort. The Supreme Council chamber was so silent, you could hear the bioluminescence humming softly from the walls. Vort shifted uncomfortably, his gelatinous body quivering as his tentacles tapped anxiously on his data tablet. Yes, Supreme One. His voice barely reached a whisper. They call it lying. Xylox's eye stalks twitched. Once, twice. Then all three of them snapped to full attention, focusing on the glowing hologram floating in the center of the chamber. The image? A small blue-green planet spinning innocently in space. Earth. Explain. Vort's tentacles hovered uncertainly over the control interface. He tapped a button, and the hologram shifted. Observe this. Human transmission. The image flickered. A human appeared. Middle-aged, slicked-back hair, shiny suit, and a smile so wide it had to be a trap. Behind him, the emblem of their planetary council, what they called the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, the human's voice echoed through the chamber, smooth and confident. We are proud to announce historic contact with the Glorgon Empire. Xylox leaned in. His eye stalks quivered with anticipation. Humanity is committed to peaceful cooperation, the man continued. And we guarantee that we harbor no weapons capable of interstellar destruction. Xylox's tendrils relaxed. He exhaled, his bioluminescence dimming in relief. Ah, a satisfied hum echoed through the chamber. They seek peace. Vort did not look relieved. Supreme One. Vort's voice was hesitant. He tapped the interface again. The hologram shifted. A new transmission. Another human. Different suit, different country. But the message? We stand ready to defend Earth with unmatched technological superiority. Xylox blinked. Wait. Another tap. The Galactic Collective has nothing to fear. Our weapons are purely defensive. Xylox's bioluminescence flickered. Tap. Humanity has no intention of utilizing its stellar arsenal unless provoked. Xylox's eye stalks twitched. We have no weapons. We have many weapons. Our weapons are for defense. We don't even know what weapons are. Xylox's tentacles froze. Silence stretched across the chamber. Even the energy field keeping the atmosphere contained seemed to hold its breath. Which one is true? Xylox's voice was barely above a whisper. Vort hesitated. None. Silence. What? Xylox's bioluminescence flared. His eye stalks extended so far they almost brushed the ceiling. None of it is true? They just say things, Supreme One. Vort's voice quivered. They call it negotiation. Xylox's tendrils curled in horror. How do they decide which version is real? Vort gulped. They don't. Xylox's tendrils went rigid. His eye stalks locked on Vort with an intensity that could melt titanium. How does their society even function? Vort's tentacles fidgeted. Supreme One, I don't know. Xylox's eye stalks drooped slightly, his bioluminescence pulsing weakly as his mind raced to process this incomprehensible information. By the stars, his voice trembled. What have we unleashed? Vort's tentacles brushed across the interface. There's more. More? Vort's body twitched as the next video queued up. A human in sunglasses. Indoors. Chewing gum. Xylox blinked. Who is that? Vort's voice was barely above a whisper. Ambassador Greg. Xylox's bioluminescence flickered. Oh no. Greg leaned back in his chair, feet up on the diplomatic table of the Galactic Collective. So, what's up, dudes? Xylox's mind short-circuited. They sent him? Nodded. Supreme One, we may be doomed. Greg popped his gum. So, what's the deal with all these tentacles? Xylox's tendrils coiled in absolute horror. We are so screwed. The Galactic Summit was supposed to be a momentous occasion. Civilizations from across the cosmos had gathered. The air was thick with the scent of anticipation, various alien dignitaries emitting pheromones, bioluminescent pulses, and telepathic hums of approval. And then, Greg happened. It wasn't that humanity had sent a representative. That was expected. Protocol. A formal exchange. No, it was who they sent. Greg. Not an ambassador. Not a scientist. Greg. He strolled into the Galactic Council chamber like he owned the place. Flip-flops, cargo shorts, Hawaiian shirt unbuttoned just enough to show too much chest hair. And a fanny pack. Xylox's eye stalks were locked on that fanny pack. His bioluminescence flickered like a failing power core. It looked harmless, but it radiated the same unpredictable chaos that Greg himself exuded. Sup, dudes. Greg's voice echoed across the chamber. Nice place. Real, spacey. Silence. The kind of silence that happens when an entire galaxy collectively holds its breath. High Chancellor Xylox's eye stalks twitched. He cleared his throat, or rather emitted a low-frequency hum that vibrated through the chamber walls. Ambassador Greg. His voice was strained. You stand before the Grand Alliance to negotiate terms of peace between your species and the Galactic Collective. Greg popped a piece of gum in his mouth. Cool, cool. He chewed loudly. So, where's the snack table? Snack. Table. Yeah, man. Greg glanced around, squinting. No chips, no dip, nada? Xylox's eye stalks twitched in disbelief. This is a sacred summit of galactic diplomacy. His bioluminescence flared, pulsing with rising stress. Right. Greg nodded, clearly not listening. Totally. Just asking. Xylox inhaled deeply, his tendrils vibrating with barely contained frustration. Earth has violated 7 galactic accords, destabilized 2 planetary economies, and introduced chaos to 3 previously harmonious star systems. We demand an explanation. Greg, wait, who told you that? Your own transmissions. Which ones? The one where you promised your species complete disarmament. Greg's expression didn't change. He just chewed. Slowly. Oh, that. He waved a hand vaguely. That was more of a suggestion. Suggestion? Xylox's bioluminescence dimmed. Yeah, you know. Greg made a vague hand gesture. Like a vibe. Silence. A vibe. Totally. Xylox's eye stalks twitched. Ambassador Greg, Xylox's voice was dangerously low. Are you implying that Earth's commitment to galactic peace was a vibe? Yup. And the promise of disarmament? Oh, that? Greg waved dismissively. More like hypothetical compliance. The entire chamber froze. Xylox's tentacles clenched the console so tightly it creaked. Hypothetical compliance? Uh-huh. Greg popped his gum again. We were just feeling it out, seeing where the conversation went. Xylox blinked. You were feeling it out? Totally. By the stars, Xylox's bioluminescence flickered violently. His mind raced. The Galactic Collective had strict protocols, entire treaties, legal systems, and planetary accords, built on trust, honesty, truth, and now this. Xylox's voice was barely above a whisper. They weaponized ambiguity. Greg tapped his fanny pack. Xylox froze. His eye stalk snapped toward the pouch. What is that? Oh, this. Greg patted the fanny pack casually. Emergency snacks. Can't negotiate on an empty stomach. Xylox's bioluminescence dimmed. His instincts screamed at him. Are you certain it contains only snacks? Greg paused. Snacks. The room erupted. He has a weapon! Seize him! Tentacles, claws, and appendages of all kinds lashed out. Security drones activated. Plasma fields hummed to life. Whoa! Greg held up his hands. Chill, dudes. It's just granola. The drones hovered, hesitated. Granola? Greg slowly, carefully unzipped the fanny pack and pulled out a granola bar. Silence. Organic, gluten-free. He held it up like a peace offering. Want a bite? The chamber froze. Xylox's eye stalks twitched hard. You caused a galactic incident over granola? Greg blinked. Technically, I caused it with my vibe, but yeah, sure. Xylox's mind was fracturing. They negotiate with snacks and vibes. Vort, who had been completely silent up until now, whispered weakly. Supreme One, I think I need to sit down. You think? Xylox's bioluminescence flickered weakly. I need to hibernate. Greg looked around the chamber, confused by the chaos he had inadvertently caused. So, no dip, huh? Xylox's eye stalks drooped. By the stars, we're doomed. Xylox's bioluminescence was fading. His tendrils, usually taut with authority, now sagged like overcooked noodles. His mind was a whirlwind of incomprehensible data. Lives, granola. How did an entire species operate on this level of chaos? Ambassador Greg, Xylox's voice barely held together. Are you absolutely certain there are no weapons in that pouch? Greg blinked, slowly. His jaw moved in lazy circles as he chewed his gum. Eyes glazed over like he was mentally elsewhere. Define weapons. Xylox's tentacles froze. His eye stalks twitched violently. What do you mean? Do you mean define weapons? Greg shrugged, fanny pack still dangling casually from his waist. Well, some people say words can be weapons, ramage and stuff. Silence. The chamber vibrated with collective disbelief. You cannot be serious. Xylox's voice was barely above a whisper. Greg was. Totally, man. He popped his gum. Words hurt, dude. Xylox's bioluminescence dimmed to a dangerous level. His advisors exchanged worried glances. At this rate, the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Collective was about to faint. You? Xylox's voice was trembling. You're suggesting Earth's greatest weapon is our words, man. Diplomacy, persuasion, subtlety. Subtlety? Xylox's eye stalks practically vibrated off their hinges. Greg grinned. We're masters of it. You! Xylox's voice cracked. You who entered this chamber asking for snacks? You who negotiated a planetary ceasefire with a vibe? Greg casually brushed some imaginary lint off his shirt. It's all part of the game, dude. Xylox stared. Game? Yup. What game? Greg smirked. Poker. Silence. Poker? Xylox's voice was barely holding on. Greg nodded, grinning like a man who had no idea the entire galaxy was on the brink of imploding. Yeah, man. Bluffing. Misdirection. Reading the other guy. Greg winked. Humans are pretty good at it. Xylox's brain stalled. You turned intergalactic diplomacy into a card game? Kinda, yeah. Greg's grin widened, but with way higher stakes. Xylox's mind shattered. His eye stalks twitched violently, his bioluminescence flickered dangerously low, and a low hum of existential dread pulsed through his body. We're all going to die. Greg leaned back in his chair, arms behind his head. Nah, man, you're overthinking it. Overthinking it? Xylox's voice echoed through the chamber. You have single-handedly destabilized the galactic order, and you think I'm... Greg nodded sagely. Sometimes you just gotta go with the flow. Xylox froze. Go with the flow? Totally. You're suggesting that galactic diplomacy should be conducted by going with the flow? Greg tapped his temple, a smug grin plastered across his face. Gotta trust the vibes, man. The vibes? Xylox's bioluminescence flared wildly. We are negotiating the fate of entire star systems, and you are basing your decisions on vibes? Greg shrugged. Seems to be working so far. Xylox froze. His mind was fighting to process the sheer absurdity of it all, and then something clicked. Wait, Xylox's eye stalks narrowed, focusing entirely on Greg. You're bluffing, right now, aren't you? Greg's grin widened. Am I? Silence. Xylox's eye stalks twitched, trying to read Greg, trying to decipher the enigma that was human behavior. But there was nothing. Xylox's voice was barely above a whisper. I can't tell. Exactly. Greg popped his gum again. Welcome to the game. Xylox's mind fractured. This was impossible. No species, no civilization can survive like this. His voice was a desperate plea for reason. You can't just lie, bluff, and guess your way through galactic politics. Greg leaned forward, elbows on the table, and grinned. Can't we? Silence. Xylox's eye stalks slowly, lowered. His bioluminescence dimmed to a dull, defeated glow. By the stars. His voice was barely above a whisper. They've been doing it the whole time. Greg winked. Xylox's mind spiraled. Every treaty, every agreement, every negotiation. His tendrils trembled. It was all a bluff? Yup. And the Galactic Collective never knew? Nope. Xylox's entire being flickered with existential dread. We've been negotiating with chaos incarnate. Greg gave him a thumbs up. Pretty much. Xylox's body sagged. His tentacles dropped. His bioluminescence dimmed to near extinction. We're doomed. Greg? He grinned. Only if you don't know how to play, Xylox blinked. Wait. Greg leaned closer, his grin widening. Wanna learn? Silence. Xylox's eye stalks twitched. Teach me. Greg popped his gum one last time, the snap echoing through the chamber like a gunshot. All right, dude. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Summit chamber had never been so... quiet. Not the kind of respectful, dignified silence that followed a profound declaration. No, this was the silence of existential dread. A silence that echoed across entire star systems as beings of all shapes and species watched in horror. Xylox was motionless. His tendrils had gone limp. His eye stalks hung low, their usual vibrant bioluminescence dimming to a dull, pale glow. He looked defeated. A leader who had witnessed the end of civilization as he knew it. And Greg? Greg was winning. The human sat across from Xylox, leaning back in his chair, arms folded behind his head, a smug grin plastered across his face. His gum popped lazily, echoing through the chamber like a ticking time bomb. All right, big guy. Greg smirked. Last hand, all or nothing. Xylox blinked slowly. His eye stalks twitched as they tried and failed to read the human. You're bluffing? Maybe. You must be bluffing. Greg's grin widened. Am I? Xylox's mind was fracturing. His tendrils hovered over the console, calculating every possible outcome, every scenario, every probability. None of them made sense. The math wasn't mathing. This isn't logical. Xylox's voice was barely above a whisper. Nope. Greg popped his gum again. That's the point. Xylox's bioluminescence flickered erratically. He was running out of time. If he made the wrong move, the Galactic Collective wouldn't just lose, they would be obliterated. Think, his inner voice screamed. Think. There has to be a pattern, a strategy. But there wasn't, because humans didn't play by the rules. Xylox's tendrils trembled. His mind screamed for logic, for reason, for anything that made sense. But there was only chaos, and Greg was thriving in it. You can't win like this. Xylox's voice was shaking now. Can't I? Greg leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. All I gotta do is convince you I'm holding all the cards. Xylox's eye stalks narrowed, trying to see through the deception. But Greg's face gave away nothing. Xylox's voice wavered. Greg's grin widened. Call it, Xylox. His tone was casual. What's it gonna be? Xylox's tentacles hovered, uncertain. Silence. I fold. The words barely escaped Xylox's mouth before the entire chamber collapsed into chaos. Gasps echoed. Alien dignitaries collapsed in disbelief. Species that had existed for millennia panicked. Entire planetary alliances were shattered in that one moment. Xylox's eye stalks drooped in shame. We surrender. The words reverberated through the chamber. The Galactic Collective, the greatest alliance in the known universe, had just folded. Greg blinked. Wait, what? Xylox's eye stalks slowly lowered. You've bested us, human. His voice was hollow. The Galactic Collective surrenders. Greg's jaw dropped. Wait, I was bluffing. Xylox froze. What? Greg blinked again, his grin fading. I didn't have anything. What? Xylox's tendrils snapped upward. His bioluminescence flared in panic. You bluffed? Greg nodded, looking genuinely surprised. Dude, I was winging it. Silence. You were winging it? Yeah. Greg scratched his head, looking mildly concerned. I thought you knew? You thought I knew? I mean, Greg shrugged. You guys are all smart and stuff. I figured you'd catch on eventually. Xylox's mind broke. By the stars, his voice was barely a whisper now. We surrendered to a man who didn't even know he was winning? Greg smiled sheepishly. Yeah? Xylox's bioluminescence dimmed completely. His tendrils drooped in defeat. This changes everything. Greg blinked. Does it? Yes. Xylox's voice was distant now. If your species can bluff its way through intergalactic diplomacy, his eye stalks trembled. Then no civilization is safe. Oh, Greg blinked again. Cool. Xylox's eye stalks snapped toward him. Cool. Yeah, man. Greg leaned back, lacing his fingers behind his head. So what now? Xylox froze. What now? The Galactic Collective had surrendered. Their treaties, their diplomacy, their carefully cultivated order, undone. Xylox's voice was weak. We will retreat. Retreat? Greg tilted his head. You sure, dude? Yes. Xylox's eye stalks drooped lower. We need time to recalibrate. Cool. Poker night next week? Xylox's bioluminescence flickered. No, Greg pouted. Aw, come on. A long, painful silence stretched between them. Fine. Greg's face lit up. Sweet. Xylox's eye stalks twitched hard. Extra cheese? Greg wiggled his eyebrows. Another long pause. Fine. Greg slapped Xylox's tendril in a high five. The chamber gasped. Tentacle to hand. All right, dude. Greg stood up, stretching lazily. See ya Tuesday, blinked. Greg turned, strolling casually toward the exit. Don't forget the dip this time. The Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Collective watched him leave. By the stars, Xylox's voice trembled. We surrendered to a man with a fanny pack. Silence. We are doomed, And somewhere, across the vastness of the cosmos, the universe facepalmed.